Welcome to Frame Rate, the show where we rate frames.
Yeah.
We got a special goodie for you guys this time. I'm Abe Epperson, one of your co-hosts. With me is
Michael Swaim, your other co-host.
And we have a special guest today. I would like that special guest to introduce themselves now.
Hello, my name is Daniel O'Brien, and I'm so happy to be here. This is my second time on Frame Rates. The first time we talked about Groundhog Day, and now we're talking about a movie that I'm very excited to talk about.
Yes. I'll be the first one to say that I am unapologetic in my fanboydom toward the show Deadwood. And today we're covering the 2019, written by David Milch, directed by Daniel Minahan, Deadwood the movie.
Yeah, quick question, Daniel. Have you seen the Deadwood movie?
I have seen the Deadwood movie multiple times.
Yes.
Well, deep sea fishing, I take it. But what are your...
My
you
background
chose it.
of Deadwood as
a
a franchise is the two of you told me to watch it. Like this was I guess like 9 or 10 years ago, where you were telling me to check out this 3-season run HBO show, and at the time I watched it by going to Blockbuster Video and getting the DVDs of the show and watching them alone in my apartment. And you guys were right. You guys said you're gonna like this. It's very well written. It's Shakespearean in terms of the monologues that the characters get to do, and you wisely knew that I liked shows where people talk grandly. And you were right.
You were
it was
saying
a show that,
cocksucker all the time around the office.
Shakespeare loved saying cocksucker.
Yeah.
It was one of the first shows where I didn't call out of work, but I was definitely late to work by like season 3, because I was just like binging him like crazy. And then season 3, I was like, listen, I'm gonna, if I go to work having not finished this show, then I'll be distracted and I'll be unproductive. So I need to just finish it right now and get it out of my system.
Zone. Yeah.
Yeah. This show makes me cry a lot.
Did you watch it when it was on? Because I watched it after the fact. Did you watch it while it was happening?
No, actually, I started watching season 1, I think, after season 3 had completed, like the year right after.
Right.
that.
Same. I literally remember the news that it got abruptly canceled and wouldn't continue is what made me decide to watch it, because I was like, it's finite now. So here we go.
I can't recall why I watched it. I just did, and then you're in it. And I suggest anyone who hasn't seen it, I don't know why you're listening to this, but
sure,
go watch it and stop listening to us, jamokes.
Yeah, this is this how rare is this for frame rates? Because you guys deal with like normal movies that most people have seen, and
our process is
a strange choice. This is a straight to HBO movie.
You have special privilege, so you with us. So I believe you said let's do Deadwood movie, and we're like, of course, because we're gonna watch that immediately. But traditionally, we send a giant list of like pre-selected movies for the guest to select from. But we have made exceptions, like Black Panther. We were like, well, we got to cover that, and we just found someone and did it. And I think Deadwood movie is similar, where it's like it feels like an event for anyone who has a relationship to the show, and knows the tragic news that David Milch has Alzheimer's now, or has onset of Alzheimer's.
Right.
It feels like a major event that we have to like note and do honor to and sort of dig into. But yeah, I only started watching it after it was canceled, and I'm wondering, how did you guys feel about the wrap up as it stood without the movie? Because I think before we get into the movie itself, it's like, where are fans of the show coming from with the movie, you know? Because it ended with, what, Swearingen scrubbing blood off the floor and saying they
Tell
want me
him
to tell him
pretty.
something pretty. Yeah.
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 Did that
Johnny
feel
something pretty.
satisfying enough to you guys?
I mean, without the movie, yeah, I think that's perfect ending for what I think the show was trying to say, which is life. I didn't I didn't think the show had like a crazy message or anything like that. I thought the show was just trying to say like, hey, life is chaotic and unpredictable, and sometimes it's sad and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it ends sooner than you'd like it to. And when the show ended in a position where it was very clearly not ready to end, I thought was perfect. Even though it was not intentional, it was unintentionally a perfect end to that show.
So that begs the question to me, should there have been a movie then? You know?
I'm glad there was a movie because the season 4 would have clearly been the Burning of Deadwood, which is where it was all going, because that legitimately, they took a lot of Deadwood, the show, from history and then played with it in like unique ways. Like Calamity Jane is an actual person,
right?
You know,
yeah,
and stuff
it's
like
worth knowing that Calamity Jane is real, Al Swearingen is real.
E.B. Farnham.
Bullock is real. These are all real people who lived in a town in South Dakota, and they had lives, and it's worth pointing that out, I think.
Yeah, it's really, but like their interactions, how they interacted with you, completely fictional.
Yes.
But one of the things that we know is like the big events they like to do, like the idea of a lawless town that is then like Yankton comes over and says, you're now going to be under the South Dakota province. These are things that happen historically. The Burning of Deadwood seems such a shoe-in for the George Hurst arc of season 3, where it's just like, this guy's just Leviathan Smiles is the episode that I always think about, where he's just like, EB describes him as like a jackal, like skull looking at him, smiling at him. Like he's haunted in kind of like you mentioned Shakespearean stuff, Dan. Like he's haunted like Banquo's ghost, you know, like there's a lot of credence spent toward him, Hurst, being like this force of nature that ultimately is going to like destroy the town.
Right.
And since they couldn't do that, this is the best they could do. And I feel it was an apt kind of end to the show.
Well, they rebuilt the set, didn't they, for this? They could have burned it if they chose not to.
It's
pointedly.
Funny, the actual Deadwood set a few years ago in the fires actually burned apropos of nothing.
Right.
Other than global warming, I guess. I don't know.
So they could have burned it. I think it's... Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
That's kind of what I don't like about the movie. I mean, I love the movie because I, at this point, feel tremendous connection to all of the characters, and the actors are so good playing them that, like, I will always want to see Timothy Olyphant play Bullock. I'll always want to see Ian McShane play Swearingen. I'll always want to see these characters do whatever they're doing. Like I would check in with them every 5 years if I could. But I still didn't love the movie just because I think it should have ended with the burning of the town, because the whole point of the show was that the Wild West is ending. This town in South Dakota,
modernity has arrived.
Yeah, like they're trying to resist Yankton as much as they possibly can, but George Hurst is coming, and George Hurst has not only money, but he has the future on his side. And if he can't get the town to bend to his will, then he is going to burn the town to the ground, which is what he did in real life. And what I think a good ending of that show would be, like the way they ended it now in the movie, where George Hurst goes to prison, I guess. Like Bullock pinches his ear and drags him to jail.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for
like,
Bullock.
No, that's not true. You fucking win. The rich guy wins. The rich guy always wins. And I wish the show did that. Like my favorite end of Deadwood is the town burns to the ground, and Al Swearingen gets shot in the back of the head at a bar in Chicago, which is, I think, how he died.
Yes, I was about to bring that up because that actually bothered me more, is that they changed how Al Swearingen died, and I don't know why it bothered me because I don't bother when they take license with other things, but always seemed perfect that is how Al should die. So it was weird that it felt like I felt the same way about Breaking Bad season 5, where I'm like, well, the popularity of Walter White as a character is starting to warp the plot as it was originally intended. You can feel it. But I also think, if there is a theme to Deadwood other than, I do think Milch is interested in character studies in a box of his own design, but the loose theme is like that it's interesting that humans do the opposite of the universe goes from order to chaos because of entropy. But in the limited scope of a human life, we tend to, like little ants, take chaos and turn it into order. So if you're the kind of person who thrives in chaos, or even is familiar with chaos, your area, like, you got to keep on the move, because every time eventually order reaches you and swallows you up. But I think so then I'm wondering if you guys felt the same. Right when the movie ended, I was like, I don't know how to feel about this, and I don't know if I like it. But after some time and distance, I feel like I understand that what they were doing is more of an end to each of the character arcs versus the end of the historical narrative. And then I was like, objectively, that's a legitimate thing to do. It was a character-driven thing. And what they really did is the important point is not that Hearst is in jail or not, but that Bullock once decided not to give into his anger problem and instead say, no, don't beat Hearst to death in the street. I'm going to stay with my brother's widow because that's society.
Right.
Although I got to say, that's the one time I was like, no, beat him to death in the street. Or he should destroy the town. It's all or nothing. Something, like, I wanted something definite to happen.
You thought Bullock should beat Hearst to death in the street?
Or, well, it was basically Lion King, right? Allow Scar to be ripped apart by the...
right, the town had gone crazy and was stoning him to death, essentially.
And I think if Bullock allowed it, but I see why they didn't. It depends what your priority is. If your priority is to decide definitively what happened with Hearst and his relationship to Deadwood, you want to see some kind of thing happen. But if you're just thinking, does Bullock ever overcome his anger problem? Then yes, this is conclusive to that. You know, it depends, like, what level of the show you were most interested in, I think.
Which I sort of didn't want from this show. Like, I didn't want there to be any kind of sense of karmic justice. I didn't want Bullock to learn anything. I didn't want Hearst to fail at the end, because I thought the point of the show was not necessarily bleakness, but just a harsh version of reality where you don't always get justice, where sometimes bad guys win. That's what I thought the show was moving us towards this entire time. And then to find out that the show ends with a wedding and the bad guy going to jail was kind of a...
Yeah, when you put it that way.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But didn't you want Calamity Jane to sober up and be with Joni Stubbs? That was the one thing that I was like, just let it happen. Just do it. I want a happy ending.
I didn't actually want, also, separate from...
Really?
Like, I didn't like how optimistic the show ended, because I think that the optimistic ending betrays the spirit of the show. I was surprised watching the movie, because if you're doing this movie, you're going to tie all the loose ends from a show that was off the air 10 years ago. And I was surprised at how much of this movie was about the Calamity Jane, Joni Stubbs relationship and stuff going on with Trixie. Those things were things like, I didn't realize that was the point of the show. I thought those were like side things.
And if you strip away the... Go ahead.
I really want to hug you, Dan.
You really want to what?
Airwaves. Hug you.
Don't we all?
Through the airwaves. Just because I think you're right about that. I think that there is there's something pure about the way that you're interpreting the events. But remember, this is TV. Like, it is about the characters. It is about like chiming in with your friends every 5 years, like you were talking about. And I think that doing service to it is what every ending of every show that was like limited because of it, like it was cut out early. I mean, we think about things like Serenity, and spoilers for I don't care, like, you know, there's deaths in like Serenity after Firefly, stuff like that. Like they want to put it to bed because they want to make it so it's like it's done, you can't do that. And it's true that this is a happy ending in that, like the way that you say it, when you boil it down, it's like a pretty much a win for almost everyone, except for, of course, the inciting Charlie Utter death, which is the biggest tragedy. But there's
and felt most in line to Daniel's point with the old show. Like I flashed back to the episode where Bullock fights a Native American dude over a burial mound and then weeps at the bar like, he was just trying to honor his friend and I killed him. I had to kill him. And I'm like, this movie never comes near that level of darkness. It felt like Cheers was wrapping up and you're like, and goodbye to you, and goodbye to you.
What I disagree with, I guess, with your guys' interpretation of, like, on the other side, like you mentioned the many moral shades of Seth Bullock, and you just want Seth Bullock not to learn, and you found that at the end, by having him not allow the mob to beat Hearst in the street, was like a success for Bullock.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think, like, in that, like, we're all trying to make Bullock be better. I don't think it's as cut and dry as that. Like, for example, when Al tells Bullock that he should murder the people who murdered Charlie, he scoffs at it. Like, he says, like, there's a line that says basically, like, I need to, you're just gonna, we should go kill him. This is Bullock talking to Al. We should just kill him. You're saying that we should just go past all lawfulness and just like be crazy murderers then? And he's like, hey, that's what Hearst did to you and to Charlie. And he was like, no, I don't. He has a line that says, my job is to interpret and enforce the law. It's not to follow it. Now, I think that Bullock is saying in that moment, it's like a pun, because what Bullock is trying to say to Al is that I'm not a mindless law drone spitting out consequences of actions. I interpret law. So yes, there is flexibility here, but the reason it's a pun is because it jump cuts immediately to him setting fire to her slumber. Which is another way of saying, like, when he says I don't follow the law, he's actually meaning I'm going to break the law.
I guess my question with that is, do you think that setting fire to Hearst lumber, is that the act of Bullock as a vigilante, or is it the act of Bullock thinking that he is doing what he is allowed to do within the confines of the law? Like
instigating
is he acting
Hearst
like
as part of a plan to draw him out.
Sorry?
He thinks...
I
mean, I have an answer, but go ahead.
I was going to bring up Serenity too, which I do think is the perfect example of, it felt like a movie in the traditional sense that a movie feels like a movie, and this felt like a TV movie. And I think it's a very good TV movie, but that led to my feeling of weird disappointment at first. Was like, it wasn't like the difference between Firefly and Serenity. It was like a long episode of the show. And I think that burning the lumber as an extension to the show, what I know about Bullock the character, which I like, it was the same thing I thought about, what's his name, Big Daddy in Kick-Ass, is you're like, someone like Batman or someone like John Wayne, their actual psychological profile would be that they have dangerous, frightening anger problems. And I saw that as a constant theme for Bullock. So I think that is why the end of his arc is like, I liked that he left the Alma thing alone and she vice versa. It was like, yeah, they love each other and can't be together. That situation will sustain because there's no way around that. That's that. Him accepting that and saying I'm home being his last lines, I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of too schmaltzy for the show. But what I got from it was, whether right or wrong, my interpretation was, yeah, it's a happy ending. Bullock is working on his anger and he decided to stay sexually loyal to his brother's widow.
Yeah.
Okay, like that's that for me. It's like Sam switching the lights off at Cheers, even down to like obviously Al being the final scene. It was so wrap-uppy. It was almost too wrap-uppy.
Yeah, that's
in
what I
some
don't
ways.
like about this movie. Because I did, by the way, love the movie, but I
Yes,
didn't
it's
like
great.
how wrap-uppy everything was. I was bummed at how optimistic it was because that betrays what the show was, and I was bummed by how wrap-uppy everything was. That it was like, oh, so Bullock just like has a family now. He's like a dad with 3 kids, and he's happy. Doing his thing, I guess. And Hearst is in jail, and Al died a hero. And
So Trixie's
E.B.
safe,
is
and
fine. I guess.
she
I
has
don't
a
know.
baby with Saul.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy about this. I think this is we can put this to bed. It pleases me that we all kind of agree and disagree to different shades. Something that I was biting my tongue about.
Yeah, but
that
like
I
Abe,
think is
I have to. I'm gonna interrupt you. Did you like the movie?
Oh, I love the movie. I
Okay,
think
great.
The movie's
Okay.
fantastic. Something I wanted to ask you guys because my interpretation, I looked at it after and I like went into the internet and it like spit a bunch of shit back at me and I was like, oh, people think differently about the ending than I interpreted it when I watched it. And then I was like, no, but my buddies, Dan and Michael, are going to think like I think about what happened to Al Swearingen at the very end.
He fucking
And
died.
He didn't. I don't think he died.
The
Really?
GLEAT worked its way to his brainstem, and he died, dude.
No, that's not necessarily. Okay, you're doing a bit. I get it.
You think he ascended
We
to
like to do bits
Xenerness
here.
or what?
No, I just think that I think it's reminiscent of another scene in the show when he gets the shit beat out of him by Bullock, and it's kind of this rondo form. Like, yes, he's gonna die
season 2
soon.
premiere.
Yes, exactly. And the ending of it is he's just sitting in his bed and he's just beat to shit and he's tired and he just exhales. And it looks like he's dying, but it's like that. And there's also another thing about Westerns that it's true that there's a Western trope that when you are seen without shoes, that's your death scene. I think that Deadwood has time and time again chosen tropes like aces and eights for like Wild Bill Hickok and like done something to kind of undermine it. So that doesn't convince me outright. And in addition,
You just dug your own grave, sir.
Let me ask you something. What is interesting about Al not dying at the end of the show?
I think
narratively, what is exciting about that?
Are you saying he goes on to get shot in the back of the head like history dictates?
Yeah, I mean, like
sure, I don't care.
If the show is leaving you to think like either he's
You seem to care.
either
a
he
bit.
dies right there, either he dies of this liver disease that he has contracted from drinking too much, or he miraculously pulls out of it and is
he doesn't
alive
stop
again
drinking to
after that.
excess.
Like,
I don't
like he
think-
stops
I don't
drinking,
think
and then
he's-
like what is. And then what? Like what is the argument for keeping Al Swearingen alive at the end of this movie? What does he do?
The argument, it's because you're looking for it to have a signifying point. I want to point you to your own. Everything gets really real. It's a darker reality because it's dealing with lawlessness. To that, I say that it doesn't matter that he survived. I'm just saying he doesn't necessarily die at that moment. Yes, he's going to die. He's very old.
Sure.
He's got cirrhosis. There's many things working against him. But like, it's not important whether he dies at that moment or not.
Right,
What
well-
it does offer is that it offers the sense of continuity and the lack of like. All I was bringing it up for was the fact that you're like everything's so complete at the end of the show or at the end of the movie that I'm like, you don't really need to see it as completes because with Seth Bullock, he's still got anger issues.
Yeah.
He just kept himself from doing one thing, which we've seen before. He's capable of that.
Right,
but he
right.
still wants to beat the shit out of people to an
that's why they-
unlawful degree. And
That's
the same
why
thing
they
with Al.
concocted like the happy ending is there was a sneaky spy and they kill him. He's the sacrifice to the plot.
Yeah.
But as far as Al goes, I just think it's interesting because highlighting that scene also brought up the other time that I noticed our other issue with the movie, which was like I understand, given the context of that scene and his physical state, he probably wouldn't have someone sucking his dick during that monologue. But it just reminded me, because of the shot sequence, of all the scenes from the early seasons where he does Shakespearean monologues while his dick's being sucked. And I was like, yeah, see, that would never happen in this movie. It feels like a Westworld version of Deadwood, or I don't know. It did feel less dangerous. The whole thing, and maybe that's an intentional aspect of, order is descending upon this place. But
I agree that it felt less dangerous. Apart from the murder of Charlie Utter, which we should really get into, the movie felt mostly toothless to me. Very safe, very pleasant.
I think
like a well-made play. So like the actual definition.
I agree with that. I feel
Yeah.
like, and maybe that's what we're all kind of dancing around, the feeling that it's not a complete movie because the stakes feel a little bit held back.
It's such a strange change of pace from the show that took many episodes and many years to unfold stories, and now you're going to try to tell one story in an hour and 20 minutes. It's just not. It's not a good fit. Like I want Bullock burning her slumber, episode 5 of a season of television. I don't want it 35 minutes into a movie.
I want Cy Tolliver resurrected from the grave. End of episode 1, though.
Powers Booth. Yeah. I want Richardson as well.
He was greatly missed.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
What did you think about the pacing of this movie compared to the show?
Yeah,
it had notable differences because it had first off, it had as a structural element that the others doesn't. The show doesn't have, because it had to do flashbacks out of necessity,
right?
To like, oh, we're referencing the murder of Jen.
This long chain of events you need to get caught up on. Yeah.
and then we're like, show a shot of a knife and Jen walking in, without. And so that was weird. It does feel Game of Thrones'd up in that as I always do, I take a stopwatch. The scene per minute number, or the average length of scene is somewhere between 80 and 90 seconds. It's wicked fast.
Yeah.
It's insane, and that's like Game of Thrones levels. That's because of the ensemble nature.
The show was much slower, though, wasn't it?
Yes, very.
Okay.
The show's average is like about 3 minutes.
Because I remember, plenty of long breakfast scenes where they eat the whole meal and like have a conversation about shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about the scenes are, for all intents and purposes, half of what the show is.
The fact so you can feel that he's doing a different thing.
Yeah, the fact that in this movie there was a prominent murder, a funeral, a wedding, a birth is insane for Deadwood's pacing.
Yes, insane.
You would never have all of that in one episode.
And the first Boba Tea chain opened in Deadwood. It was nuts. All kinds of shit.
Like, we find out that Trixie is pregnant in scene like number 7, and she gives birth in like scene 12.
Yeah.
so it's like they're not even fucking.
How did you
stopping?
Feel about, because Charlie Utter's actual murder is the inciting incident, but I would say the escalating incident or whatever, possibly break into Act 2. I'd have to. I didn't do a stopwatch, so that's just my gut instinct. Is Trixie?
Oh yes,
just going, I'm gonna fuck everything up. I'm gonna just go, hey, you, only guy who's a threat to me in this whole wide world while I'm pregnant. See my face? Remember me? You want me dead, remember? Okay, good.
I was surprised by that. I didn't know what to think of that, really. I mean, like, the character is cool. The actress is incredible, but I didn't have a beat on her as, like, this is the rabble-rouser, really, who's going to question first.
Oh, really?
It was the guilt
in the square. I didn't anticipate that.
she always to me was an element that would just like fuck shit up because she would get angry.
Yes,
Like,
but I always
she
get the
shot
motivation. In this case, I can't trace a clear motivation for that happening at that moment.
Yeah.
Two things to me. One, the guilt that she has to live with every
Right.
single day for the fact that she was saved by Al, quote unquote,
Yeah.
by the murder of an innocent Jen.
Yeah.
No, that's huge.
And then on top of everything, the murder of Ellsworth, her good friend, the murder of the town, the fucking up of Al. There's a moment where Saul Starr is like, remember, it's early on when she kills a Hooplehead in season 1, and like the doc is like taking an apparatus, and he's like, "Oh, this is weird. The brain, it went into the brain, but he's still
trajectory,
talking." Yeah, and she's like, because she shot someone, and Al is like, "You can't just shoot people, and so I'm gonna like beat the shit out of you because that's like how it went, I guess." And he puts his foot on her throat, and she goes, "I'll be good."
Yeah.
To Saul in the movie is an echo of that season 1 line, when like he's
When
like,
she-
"You
when
gotta
she's
shut
praying?
up! Don't you understand that?" When she's yelling out at the balcony
Just
at
shut
hers.
the fuck up.
Yeah, he's like, "Shut the fuck up! Do you realize like he can notice you and like." When that happens, we're all fucked, and she says, "I'll be good." I think she's always been that kind of
But you think it's in
chaos.
in character for her to go out on the balcony and yell at this point a senator? You
'Cause
think
it's not
that's like an
strategic.
unnormal
Not
thing
the
for her
first
to do?
time.
She would ambush
true.
him like she did the first time.
She
Yeah.
used to do that. Yeah, she used to say that. Now, it's true he's now a senator, so that's one thing, but she doesn't care about that bullshit.
I also thought it was fucking weird
She
how
also shot him, like,
all the extras in the thoroughfare like John Wicked it. Like everyone's like, this crazy shit is happening. Let's stop the parade and turn and listen to this mad woman.
Let's see what she has to
first
say.
song as she chooses to speak.
This pregnant, screaming woman from the balcony.
no. Good points coming out from Overland left field. I need to hear this.
Well, Hearst definitely doesn't have the savvy of a modern senator to like zero in on the one heckler in the crowd and be like, I'm going to engage you as a serious peer and like try to convince you you're wrong.
He is. I will also say that McRaney, who plays Hearst, is so good. I can't even stand how good he is.
Fucking good.
He's a guy who was in Coach.
Major Dad.
He was Major Dad, or he was Coach? He
was Major
He was
Dad,
Major
yeah.
Dad. Okay. He was Major Dad, and then disappeared for so long, and then did Deadwood, did the A-Team movie. Doesn't really do a whole lot, but he is so goddamn good. I can't even stand it. And
You gotta watch. Sorry, I was interrupting.
No, he's just the. I mean, Ian McShane is great, but he is to me the standout of the Deadwood movie. He's so.
You gotta
fucking
watch
good.
the fucking interviews that people have with him about Deadwood. He fucking loves it. He's
Really?
so
Nice.
into it. Yeah, it's like anytime I need to wake me up where I'm like, I fucking love the world sometimes. Because he's just like, Deadwood is amazing. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. It brought me back from the dead. Like, he's just like, it's so fantastic. Everyone is so good. I feel like I'm on hallowed ground every time I walk on that
Honestly, I'm a Leviathan. I'm the Leviathan.
set. Yeah, I am the Leviathan.
The gold, it speaks to me from under the mountain.
The boy the earth talks to. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just so good. I can't even stand how good he is. This
Well, I think-
actor who doesn't work enough, probably should, and he just like pops up every once in a while to do Deadwood movies for the three of us.
Right.
Milch also, I feel like, would write a great like cycle of Batman comics because has a special flair for different shades of unthinkably evil villain. Like the show's Rogues Gallery is way better than the Heroes Gallery, which are like interesting twists on tropes you've seen before. But I mean, counting EB as a type of villain, Cy
Wait,
Tolliver
Swaymer,
as a
who do you
type
think
of
are
villain.
who do you think are the heroes of Deadwood?
Well, I'd say Bullock, Alma, Joni, Calamity, Utter.
Okay, that's
And
fair.
then Swearingen has that gray area where, which I don't know if I like it. Like you were mentioning him. And here's the thing. I also sometimes understand why I don't think it's appropriate to lightly put in something like, even if it's a period piece, a pimp, stepping on a sex worker's throat.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But if that's your show and that's where you're going to go, it also seems weird to me that by season 3, you're like, Al Swearingen, he's a pretty good dude, though. And you're like, you are able to forget that early shit that happened.
I don't think he's ever a good dude. He has a weird moral assessment of.
I don't think
they're all.
I don't think he's a good dude.
All
I
their-
think there are just
No, he's not.
worse dudes are introduced. Is the thing that
Exactly,
saves Al
exactly.
Swearingen.
Yeah, I didn't want to move on from because I love what we're doing, but I had to throw in what I thought was one of the best back in interchanges. That was like, okay, this is David Milch being David Milch, because we're talking about Hearst and how much of like a bastard he is, and the interchange between Charlie and Hearst when Hearst is trying to buy his land, has the best Milch back and forth. It's 3 lines. Charlie: maybe getting motherfucked this morning in the thoroughfare by a woman in the bargain has somewhat got your back up. Not the accolade you looked at for in your return to fucking camp. Hearst: proffering that assessment, sir, is hardly your proper ballywhack. Charlie: as far as that, I went and proffered it any fucking way. It's just like combining like this high prose with just any fucking way or return to fucking camp. Like it's just so sometimes that's the soup I want to
mixing eloquence with vulgarity is perfect Milchian writing.
And EB gets one monologue to himself in the dark, so you're like, Milch knows what the fabric of his universe is.
Yeah,
right.
How did you guys feel about Charlie Utter dying?
Oh, awful.
I think, it's awful. And it was, when it happened, I was like, of course it did, because it was this, it's like they had to jumpstart the inciting event in the movie.
Right, you had to
mimic what, because the Ellsworth death is what really was propelling the series at that point.
It should have been Ellsworth dying, but they already did that, so they had to have a second person.
And they couldn't just like do a quick cut of all of the series,
because
literally to do another death.
The end of Ellsworth's arc is he is in the position to safeguard Alma's land holdings in the area. That would have been Ellsworth doing that.
It's more perfect.
Yeah.
It is more perfect, but if Ellsworth is dead, you have to kill someone, and it has to break everyone's heart, and so it's got to be Charlie Utter.
It's got to be Charlie.
I could have seen Joni Stubbs dying. That would have been very sad to everyone.
That would not have had an impact on me, because I didn't really care about Joni Stubbs as a character.
I don't think it wouldn't have an impact on Bullock.
No, it would not.
Oh yeah, you're trying to John Wick Bullock into flipping out.
You gotta
set him off.
You know what? Yeah. Here's another thing that bugged me about this movie that I love so much is not enough EB. If I'm being totally honest.
Totally,
I agree.
Absolutely.
My favorite character from the whole series, and he's got like 2 major bits in this. He's got the a small monologue, and he whispers to Bullock about Hearst's plans, and that's really it.
Remember, he pisses himself in front of Hearst.
Yes.
And remember, he's mayor of the town.
and he tries to use a telephone. But yeah, it's true. It's not traditional EB where he's like kind of a tragic character. It's like it's post-tragedy where he's just vile and pathetic.
It's like when Slimer just became a member of the Ghostbusters who hangs out instead of having his own thing going on.
Right.
That's
It's just like, just die, Slimer.
But yeah,
he does have one of my favorite comedic moments, which is Hearst contracts out the killing of Samuel because Samuel witnessed Charlie's death to the 2 guys who did the killing.
Right.
And EB's in the apparently in the hotel. You can get in between the walls, which is a thing now.
Yeah.
Like he's fucking, I don't know, like he's a fucking
how have
Tim
we not
Burton
seen
character.
that in the show?
I know.
Yeah.
And he's looking in and he's like, Hearst says something like, yes, basically kill him. And then EB looking in goes, oh, Judas Priest. And he like hobbles off like a mouse. It's just like, oh man, EV, you never were really good, but man, you've really fallen.
What did you think about, speaking of side characters, what did you think about the side plot with the sex worker and Johnny Burns?
Yeah, I thought that was honestly the worst part of the show.
I did love that Johnny Burns got winged again, because his like role is just to get minor injuries in the show over and over.
Yeah, is that you guys would know better. He says I'm fucking shot, or like fucking shot I am, and Al says you'll live. Is that a repeat? Did they do that in the season?
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
They said that earlier.
Yes,
okay,
that's another callback.
Fairly shot, be ye, says I.
Be ye, says I. Speaking
of which, is there any arc for Dan Doherty? I can't recall if there was.
There's
he's
one
a sentimental
little shadow
favorite
of one that it's actually, I want to talk about. Yeah, Johnny and Dan and what's happened to them in these 10 years.
I like Dan's fashion. I like Dan's fashion a whole lot. I like that Dan has cut his hair and is clearly a more respectable member of society.
Eye gouger.
It's like a very obvious symbol of like Yankton coming to South Dakota and turning the Wild West into modern culture. But I still
he always wanted baseball.
Yeah. But I still like that. I like that Dan is moving with the times instead of being left behind by them.
Right. I like that. I want to. There's a specific moment that Dan Doherty has that I want to ask you guys about and what your thoughts on about it, because not once in the show does Dan Doherty ever take orders from anyone but Al. But when Samuel's getting beat out in the street and Bullock hears of it from EB after the auction, Al points at Bullock and says, "Follow." And Bullock says, "With Al." And Dan says, "Stain." As if to say he's listening to Bullock's orders over Al. What is your interpretation of that?
I think the more important half in Dan's mind is not that he's listening to Bullock, but that he's going to protect Al regardless.
So he's just always the loyal guy. So there's no real change there.
He loves Al so much.
I did think there's one really interesting aspect about Johnny's character that we learn, which is, if we remember at the end of season 3, literally the last line, we hear this "tell him something pretty," referring to don't tell Johnny what really happened.
Right, yeah, tell Johnny a sweet lie about how she died instead of this real thing where I murdered her.
Right, but then when he's talking to the what's her name? God, I forgot, because she's the only new character in it.
Yeah. New Girl. When he's talking to New Girl.
Yeah. He's mentioning to her. She's like, where'd Jen go? And he said she died, and then she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry about that." It's but Johnny makes clear that he knows that something happened, because he says she died of poor luck. Yeah. And then he goes on to say that she died because she dies as a consequence of nothing that she had control over.
So he knows Al chose to have her die somehow.
Yeah, he knows somewhat about it, which is news to us. So that's the only thing that scene was like, that's a change for him.
That's true, and that is dark.
He's fine with it. He's been hidden in the darkness in the entire show because he's too dumb.
Yeah, his main thing is he's dumb.
He's included. Yeah, he's in the know about shit.
Or he absorbed it slowly enough that he's rationalized it. Like, he might not be happy about it, but he accepts it and moves on.
I love that one scene in the show where he actually gets things right. Like, it's like one of the notes that they're passing through between Hearst and Al. And he's like, maybe it's this. And then Al is like, realizes that that's correct, and he just punches Johnny for being not a dummy.
Did you miss Titus Wolliver at all?
I did, but honestly, it's kind of perfect in the way of, if one person who hadn't died but just couldn't make it, it makes sense that it would be the guy who's kind of the mercenary.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be there, and you don't need to explain it.
So he was so busy working on Bosch.
Yeah, because he's the lead. But Silas was always a great character, but I didn't miss him. I just would have liked to have seen him.
Yeah.
Was Jeffrey Jones briefly in it? I think he was, to my surprise.
He was the auctioneer.
Okay.
He was, he was there.
Crazy. Which is crazy because that guy
but it did
was caught
seem
with child porn. So.
Right, but it did seem like a scene that they threw him like, all right, get him in, get him out, get out of here.
Yeah, a little bit. I think he was a main part of the show, and then that shit came out. They're like, we gotta include him, but
Speaking of which, I don't. This is a question for the people who made this show. I don't think Alma needed to be in this movie at all, but I also think she absolutely needed to be in this movie because you can't make a Deadwood movie without Alma. But I don't really know what function she served. That's the weird thing about making season 4 of this show a 2-hour movie.
I believe her function. Yeah, it felt like her function was just to raise the question once more of, will Bullock buck order? Because he's a lawful good D&D character. Will he buck order for love? And they decided that the Wild West answer is no. He has to submit to like the rules of society as it's dictated.
But like, were you invested?
But then
in his
why is she
that
right? No,
I liked how they played that. But,
I was in the show, but I feel like in the movie, it was literally just there was like a scene where you're like, she's in town. Well, they use her largesse to outbid Hearst.
Yeah,
that's a key plot
I mean,
point.
she's got money.
Yeah,
but
rich as fuck.
It makes me wonder. It's one of the things that makes me realize this is the finale of a TV show, not a movie. Because in movie writing logic, she needed more to do or didn't need to be there. But in TV show finale logic, Diane has to come back at the end of Cheers, even if she hasn't been there for 3 years, to be like, I am also here. So long, everyone.
I think the bidding works to me as like she's necessary because without it, it's just a bunch of people who don't like Hearst trying to challenge Hearst, but they have no authority. The one authority that Hearst needs to respect is money, which having, Alma in their corner to throw that shit around infuriates him to no end, to the point that now not only are they insulting him in the street and not giving him what he wants, even though they're he's like, I'll raise, hey Charlie, I'll raise the 3,500 to 400. And then in the bidding war, it goes to 73, and she's like, I'm gonna match you every single time. And he's like, fuck this. Like, he is a rat in a cage, and that's the one thing he hates more than anything. And it's
satisfying. But it's I just felt she had a bit of like a Captain Marvel effect or a Superman effect. I would have liked to see her come under some kind of legal or financial threat because of that and have to get herself out of a jam, just so that she had a thing that she was doing from her point of view in her own life.
Pressure put upon her that she can
some kind of additional season, perhaps.
That's I realized that the reason I'm harsh on the movie is not actually mainly fault of the movie. I think it's really well done, which we have to keep saying, but it's that I want it to be another season of the show. And they did the best you can do to appease that, but it's not possible. I wanted it to not stop.
I didn't want a movie. If you're going to do this 10 years later, I want season 4 of Deadwood, honestly. I want still keep it 10 years later. Still age every character up, but don't do 2.5 hours or whatever the movie length was. Just like make it a normal.
Who were you most shocked? Who were you most shocked to see 10 years older? Was there anyone that shocked you when you saw them 10 years older?
Because they're actually 10 years older.
I know, but I'm saying some of the people I was like, whoa, it's been a rough 10 years.
Charlie Utter surprised me.
Charlie Utter. Yeah. I did notice.
Calamity Jane looks the goddamn same.
Exactly the same.
Oh my god!
But I thought Saul Starr looked a little John Hawkes.
Something Timothy Olyphant has done to his teeth.
Veneers.
Oh really?
Maybe.
Yeah, they're too pearly.
His pearly whites.
Yeah, it takes you out of it a little bit for a Western.
You're like,
But
it's the
fun.
West. He should have lost some of these by now.
Well,
Yeah.
he put all of that justified money right back into his teeth.
I do. There
Yeah.
was his conversation with Charlie Utter bumped me in a way that I didn't like when he was talking to Utter, and he was not speaking.
The dinner invite.
It was pre-dinner invite. It was when Charlie Utter was talking about how Hearst had put a bid on his land, and Timothy Oliphant was like, Charlie Utter gets this bid, and he says yes, and then one day he doesn't have any land anymore, and it was like this strange, very modern use of sarcasm that seems strange to me, strange for the time, and also strange for Bullock as a character.
And Bullock wasn't really the one that was usually conscious of like larger social trends being a threat.
Bullock is like headfirst stupid. Which is
he's
what
like,
I love about
someone's
Bullock.
mistreating a lady. Oh, I will be there, and
I'm
going
gonna
to
beat the shit out of someone in the street and not think about it.
I think that's kind of because that's the Seth Bullock approach to life. I think that the quote.
Do you ever think about not going at something straight away?
Yeah, you ever
No.
think Bullock? No, which is the perfect. Also, that shot is beautiful, but
Very perfect,
it's also emotionally. It's very resonant to the scene where remember when after Walcott in the show murders the entire Chesame except for Joni, and then they start deciding maybe that should turn into a schoolhouse for the children, and they're talking about like the temporary situation of like the theater people buying all this. It's like a whole hatched plan, and Charlie Utter is like the point man, and he goes to Bullock and he's like, all right, so here's the thing. We got the theater people. They want this. We got these people. Joni, I'm worried about that. And then we got Calamity Jane, and I don't know what her problem is. And he's just like laying down like you do it when you go to therapy to Seth Bullock. And he's like, my main question is basically, would your wife be okay as the teacher moving where the schoolyard is? And she's like, yeah. Why would she fucking care?
Yeah.
He's like, he is very. I think Seth Bullock, that sarcasm that you're talking about, which I definitely know what you mean, and that may be a failure of writing a little bit, but I still think the impetus behind the character, he's very callous when he's only about what's in front of him, and if that matters, and if he's lawful good, and so if anything else, he's like, that's stupid. Stop wasting my time.
No,
sometimes.
he's still
and he's
definitely
not
like
very.
His prime motivation is still like George Hearst wants this thing, so I'm against it. Like that's as far as his thought process goes, is blocking George Hearst from doing things. So I think it's consistent with the character on that front, but still think it's weird that he's like colorful and thoughtful with his language. When he's
it's a little like socioeconomically aware for Bullock. I agree with that.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
What did you guys think of the last line? Our Lord who art in heaven, fucking stay there.
It's fine.
It's
I like
fine.
it a lot.
What do you think?
I mean, I think it's a good last line.
I think it's just that Al's whole thing is that he thrives in chaos and God represents order, and he'd rather that stay away for as long as possible.
Yeah.
God is Yankton, because submitting to God's will for you is a kind of order, bringing order to the universe.
Doesn't it kind of go hand in hand with his other line in the series where he says, like, announcing your plans is a good way to hear God laugh?
Mm-hmm.
And here he is talking directly to God through, a vessel, Trixie, saying, stay in heaven, God. That's like, he's laughing at himself, right? He's got to be aware that he has no control over that. He's just announcing
his opinion, his wish, if it were up to him, which it's not.
Yeah, my lowly wish is I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I wish God would let me forge my own path and not interfere in any way. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Which is a weird, I don't know. I accept all the help I can get. It's interesting that bent that some human beings have where you're like, I want to do it myself or it doesn't matter.
I don't think Al's the kind of guy who believes. I don't think Al's
no
the
one
kind of guy
does
who believes
stuff
in
himself
God,
anyway.
to be honest.
Yeah.
But
but he's still espousing a philosophical
Al is
opinion
spiritual.
vis-a-vis God.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Did you say Al is spiritual?
I think Al is spiritual.
Al is spiritual.
He's superstitious.
he's definitely irreverent when it comes to it. So even if he believes that there's, I mean, this is all speculation because we never see him at a church.
Right.
He doesn't go to funerals. So whether or not he does believe in it, he chooses to be irreverent in the way of like, you don't have power over me at the very least.
It seems like even if he met God, he'd go like, "Hey, you bastard," and like he has a perverse desire to spit in the eye of whatever authority there is.
Graybeard cocksucker.
Yeah, exactly. I do like there's one moment with Al. It's a sad night. Something's afire. Christ, I do have feelings.
Yeah.
Which is such a like, he's joking to himself.
Yeah.
But he's like, whoa.
He speaks to himself, but he's like doing it. It's such a like meta bit now because he's like, he's treating himself as both the speaker and the audience.
Yeah.
Like it's a very weird.
It's Jim Gaffigan doing his high pitched voice.
Yeah. Oh.
I think Milch steered into that a little bit in ways that kind of bugged me, like when Trixie and Saul, like when she was going into labor, Saul spoke heightened in a way that he didn't in the 3 years of the show, where she's going into contractions and he's like, "Call the doctor, we should do," or whatever fucking Yoda thing he said that seemed very unnatural. Like
By
they both
Brad
spoke
Dourif,
very
we shall
eloquently.
thrive.
Sorry?
Yes.
What did Michael say?
By Brad Dourif's magic, we shall thrive.
Yeah.
Which he didn't have enough of an arc just because he's my absolute favorite, but I understand why. Like, he didn't have anything he in particular needed to wrap up. But I was like, where's Brad Dourif?
He's my favorite character.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so good.
He's so good. And it was like, it's very funny that like by the end of the 3-season run of Deadwood, he was like coughing blood into a handkerchief. And then when they started this, it's fine. Like that was wrapped up. He's okay.
It's just a cough. It's
he
fine.
cured his tuberculosis sometime off screen.
Right.
I don't think he ever had tuberculosis.
It's been 10 years.
It's been 10 years. It was just a cough. It sucked.
Just allergies. It was just allergies the whole time.
It was just the biggest red herring of all time. But yeah,
it's like, God damn it, Al! You got your fucking
goddamn
liver disease, Al. I was like, what about you?
God damn you, Al.
My thing? No, that was nothing. That was just a cough.
God, he's truly missed in this show. Like for all the reasons you guys said.
He is. Yeah, there's not enough of him. The same way there's not enough EB. There's not enough of Brad Dourif. He's so fucking good.
I don't think I've ever been floored by a scene more than him.
The Civil War scene.
Yeah, he's screaming at God like, "Mommy, did their screams not sate you, Lord?" You know, like he's so drunk, and it's just like, oh man,
the white pages. Bring me the white pages.
The darkest place I've ever seen.
He's honestly one of my favorite actors of all time. Like he came out early with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as Billy Bibbit, the stutterer in that show,
and missed
in
dude
that movie, and then like decided to stop acting for a while and take classes and teach classes just because he was like, truly, he was like, oh, I don't think I'm good enough to act professionally, so I'm going to go back to school.
My ministrations cannot work at this remove.
Yes, my talents, such as they are.
Yeah, that's right. Cannot function at this remove. But yeah, Daniel, did you know he's also one of the villains in the first Myst game? You know, which used real filmed actors.
No, I didn't. I know he's a bad guy in those Lord of the Rings movies that people are.
He's a worm tongue.
But man,
that's where
Myst is just such a deep like nerd cut. I was blown away to look back and realize
he's like a voice actor in it.
No, because Myst uses filmed actors. He's like filmed on a green screen going, bring me the red pages. I need the red pages to destroy my brother.
Who are the most famous people in these games?
Well, nowadays, it's gotten to the point where they do celebrity casting, but like...
No, but I want specifically this game that you're talking about.
Oh, in Mist? Oh, it's Brad Dourif by far. Yeah,
Okay.
at this looking back. But it was one of his first roles, and it's just bizarre to see him in there.
That's so good. Why are we talking about Mist? I love it.
Oh, no, because we got to wrap up.
Okay. Yeah, it's yeah. Yeah,
Wah,
it's
wah.
What is your
I'm really
what's your favorite thing in this movie?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Do you got one, Michael? To give me time to think.
Charlie Utter's caved-in skull. No,
Jesus.
I do. I will. I'll answer first. That
Calamity
I do
Jane,
love
always and forever
the
is my
life
answer.
that Charlie Utter had for himself, like that.
Yes.
He got this house. He got this land, and the little N-word general fishes on it. And that's the kind of life that I'd like to have. And the conversation between him and Hearst, where Hearst is asking about his father, is a really great scene. And
It is.
You know what? I
like it for Charlie Utter's last scene.
Mine's Joni and Calamity.
It's so good.
As it has been.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of go with Dan. The scene between Samuel Fields at the end with Bullock, one of my favorite scenes, even though it has the ending of like moving on with hope kind of stuff, and they like hold each other's hands. It has this other effect that I thought for the longest time, and I've brought it up before, Timothy Olyphant, I always thought that it was just like perfect casting. Like for Deadwood, Seth Bullock, like he's just this stilted, emotionally guy. I mean, like Timothy Olyphant is like, he's the villain in Live Free and Die Hard. He's Hitman.
Right.
Like
Sure.
the roles that he was getting before Deadwood didn't show much dynamic range as an actor. And when in Deadwood, he's kind of.
I mean, he was great in The Girl Next Door.
That's the thing. That's what it's showing me, is that he's got more range than I thought. Because like in Deadwood, he'd do things like you see it like teenage actors do, who like kind of like lack the confidence. Like he would just always be one note and be very stoic. But I think it was a very specific choice by him to just be that person the whole time.
Yeah.
Because that's what Seth Bullock is. I thought it was David Milch just having superior casting and being like, this guy actually is kind of like that, so he's perfect in this role. But the scene with him and Samuel Fields in the movie where he is crying and like basically he's going like, I don't know if the things I want make us succeed as a group. Like that lack of that ambition, that heightened ambition that Seth Bullock has for doing the right thing, not necessarily being the right thing all the time, and him coming to terms with that as he deals with this guy who's like could be dead, you know, like he could like they're old, getting the shit beat out of you, he might be dead, and you know Al might be dying on the other side of the camp. So that whole sequence at the end with I forget what the song's called, but the one about the dancing girl.
It was I know the song. It's
that whole
somebody.
Yeah, it's definitely that. That whole montage is perhaps the favorite to me. Even though I know we started this podcast as like the completion arc was too much. Yeah, that is probably still my favorite.
Michael, what's your favorite?
Well designed.
Oh, for me, it's Joni and Calamity.
Really?
Just because it's an arc that was so long coming, and I was waiting for it so hard. And I think such an original arc for a period piece that centers around dudes saying the word cocksucker, to have like a strong, complicated lesbian romance was, I thought, pretty awesome. I was just very into that. I ship that couple for sure.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, they're amazing. Calamity, I wish we could talk more.
Being the star.
Her first, she starts off as the. She
like,
starts off
good
with the first
drunk
line.
acting is also very hard, and that actress's ability to act at every level of drunkenness, from sober to tipsy to shit faced, is amazing. And she can switch between being shit faced for comedy or being shit faced for tragedy somehow.
Yeah.
The first lines are given to Calamity in the movie, and
Yep.
it's just the first one is 10 years gone, approaching that same self-hill I thought to lay me down and rise no more. Ooh, give me wide berth. That's just past wind.
Yeah, we really breezed past it, but the fact that this movie opens with Calamity Jane and trains coming through Deadwood is fucking perfect.
Yeah.
What an amazing
perfect.
entrance to this movie.
It's
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then before it does the Deadwood, like before it shows Deadwood as a reveal of like we're now at town, it's the last bit of her line that says that, and she goes, "Oof, I have a left cheek ass blisters percolating son of a bitch." It's just like I love how the mixing of the crassness. It's like it's always the same with Milch. It's always this heightened thought that makes you go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
That is a really deeply involved and intertwined like medley of emotions. And then he's like, as soon as that happens, he bows down and gives you this, but I'm still a lowly servant, you see.
Yeah.
You know, like with his crass language or his, he's perfectly Calamity Jane, because Calamity Jane always does that. Like she does something good and she's like, I probably left a bottle somewhere. I'm a fucking drunk.
Here's something profound. By the way, I just fucking farted. No big deal.
Exactly.
That's what makes it like an apt conclusion.
That's very interesting. I'd love to watch all of Deadwood again with Calamity Jane in my head as like the David Milch
Oh, please
analog.
do.
That's a really good idea that I hadn't considered. You're smart, Abe. You're a good guy, Abe.
Hey,
You're a bright
I
fella.
love you, man. You're a bright fella.
So that means I have to be the bad guy, which I will be,
Okay.
because unfortunately I feel like we could go equal length again on this. But I got another guest for another show who's been sitting here quietly for 10 minutes, so I have to wrap us up.
Really? What the fuck?
To do a Tales from the Pit.
6:30 West.
But I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure people, our fan base overlap is strong, but I still wanted to give Dan a chance to shout out Quick Question and all that stuff, so please do, sir.
Oh yeah, I have a podcast with Soren Bowie called Quick Question that you can find. God Almighty, you can find by Googling it.
I know it's on Spotify.
Actually know
I've
the
been listening
website.
on
Tell me more.
Spotify.
To find it.
Yeah.
Mostly, I think you guys, if you like me, and you like Abe, and you like Michael, and you like all the work that we do, you should contribute to the Small Beans Patreon.
There you
so
go.
sweet.
Whatever
you're
you
so
can
sweet.
give, just do it.
Do it, guys.
It's keeping a lot of people employed, and we're all making fun stuff for you, the listener.
It's true. And of course, apropos of nothing, don't forget to catch Last Week Tonight with John Oliver.
Oh yeah. If you guys want to watch
Congratulations, by the way, is in order. Emmy consideration.
Well,
I guess I'm an
okay.
Emmy-nominated writer now, but that's
Nice. I was like, for the job? It's been like years now. Okay. Emmy-nominated Daniel O'Brien
Well earned.
loves it when Calamity Jane describes her farts, and that's what we'll go out on.
I'd watch that, actually.
He's like, I like that. I like that.
Thumbs up. 2 thumbs up. All right.
Exactly.
Well,
All right.
I guess
Thank you
that's
so
our
much,
Deadwood
guys.
episode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And we'll do something else some other time.
Yeah,
sorry, I gotta rush
we now
it,
know
but
how to do it now.
finally.
Now that technically
We will
Yeah.
do something else some other
Past
time.
us.
I will. By the way, I will do this once a week if you'll have me. I'm
Really?
always happy
Awesome.
to talk to you guys
Okay.
about movies.
We always wonder about bugging you, but fine.
No, I
Holy shit, then.
have no friends and nothing to do.
Yeah.
right.
I think one of the barriers was one of the
Sure.
barriers was figuring out the recording system, but we've done that. So get fucking
Yeah,
ready.
yeah, get ready to take our shit.
We will cover the Deadwood movie 8 more times.
Yeah, just,
This is what
I
we
really
do.
want to talk about this just for another 9
Yeah.
hours. So it's you can't force me to stop.
Exactly.
All right.
All right.
Thank
So
you,
long,
everyone.
gentlemen.
Bye
And
bye.
audience.
I
Yeah.